Ask Reddit, what was the wildest way you found out you were being cheated on? Hello friend, and welcome back to a new Ask Reddit video. Today we will hear the wildest stories, so lay back and let's get into it. Her parents told me. She demanded to read all the messages on my phone. I said no problem, but only if I could read the messages on hers. She had forgotten to delete a message from a guy saying all we ever do is have adult fun, can't we hang out sometime? There was nothing on my phone. He apparently wrote an address wrong, and the love letter he wrote was returned to our home. It was a great way to come back from vacation. Date night canceled day of. I decided to make it a guy's night to see the new Marvel movie at the time. As we entered, I saw her sitting at the theater, snuggling up with a guy. Our seats were a few rows back, saw them kiss a couple times. When we all left at the end of the movie, they were exiting their aisle as we walked down the stairs. She absolutely froze when she saw me. Blocked her on everything while I'm in parking lot. On my birthday, I was with my GF and I passed out early since I had a long-ass shift that day, and I had to drive 2H to get to her place. Woke up in the middle of the night, went outside to get a smoke, saw her fing her ex in his car on the parking lot. I joked about knowing she was cheating. She broke down and admitted it. My entire friend group knew about it, and I only found out after the one real homie blackmailed her into admitting it. And when she did, it was the most insincere shit ever.
It's no big deal, everyone else thinks it's okay.
And stuff like that. Suffice to say, I got my ass out of that relationship and friendship group real quick. Not me, but my dad. His girlfriend at the time had been cheating on him with his friend, who didn't know they were in a relationship. My dad found out when his friend told him he was gonna propose to her. I went on a 2-week holiday, and when I returned, he was acting really strange. I tried to ask him what was wrong and why he was acting off. He started an argument with me, told me I was too young and insecure, asked me to leave, didn't want to see me again. I left sobbing, totally confused. 9 months later, I see him walking through the city with his ex and a newborn baby. Now I understand. Edit, thank you so much for all the love and the laughs you've given me about it in the comments. I was 18 and he was older, so of course I was smitten. It stung at the time, but I got over it. It's a funny story I tell at the bar every now and then. He did me such a favor. I'd have probably got stuck in my hometown if I'd stayed with him. Life is so short, throw yourself at it and appreciate every feeling you get. He was drunk at his 21st, and while joking around with his friends, he started listing off all the women he'd slept with in the last year. I was standing right there, and we'd been dating for 2 years at that point. My 9-year-old son told me that there were strange men in the house when I was away working. She'd been at it for years. It's horrible to deal with at the time, but honestly, it's such a relief to be rid of such a toxic mess. Broke up with me, and as I was going through deleting her socials, I noticed a post she made on her Snap story that was her and a guy with a post saying, "With my king." Post was made 2 hours ago and had only broke up an hour ago. He sent me a photo of some girl sucking his D at the party he was at. On Valentine's Day. After canceling his plans with me. He sent me a pic of the dog while I was away with a text that said, "Look how cute she looks." Like 3 weeks later, I went back to the photo to show a friend, and upon looking at the photo again, I noticed a pair of women's boots in the background by the door. Her other boyfriend, who I didn't know existed, and I had a mutual friend who put 2 and 2 together and told me. I said I wanted to meet him, so he called him over. We talked out some things, and then called her together at my suggestion. Good times were had by all -1. My fire alarm woke me up when it was low on batteries at 5 a.m. and thought it was strange that my GF wasn't home yet. She was out drinking with her friend. I tried to call her, but she didn't answer. That's when I remembered that we had the friend's spare key. She lived like next house, so I went to check, and my GF was sleeping in her friend's bed with some guy. If the fire alarm didn't woke me, I think I wouldn't have ever known. Came home off a deployment. Now, ex-wife was acting really weird, but I figured it was because I had been gone for a year and everything was just taking time to get reacquainted. About 3 days after I returned, I had a notice from my unit stating my vehicle had 3 tickets at another base. We were in Germany, a few hours away in the past few months. When I went in to find out what the deal was, all 3 had photos attached to them for speeding through a checkpoint. All 3 had my wife and some other guy. She was kissing him in the 3rd pic. He was driving my car. I was out at a bar with some friends when I started talking to the people next to me. They were wearing our town's local social sports club shirt. So I asked them if they knew my wife, who was in the club. They responded with, "Yeah, I know her. I hear she is cheating on her douchebag husband." I then reply, "I am her husband," and ran out the bar crying. Had one of those catching up phone calls with a girl I used to be good friends with. Told her all about my girlfriend during the conversation. The next day, I'm supposed to see my girlfriend and she cancels on me. No big deal. A couple hours later, my old friend starts texting me asking me questions about my girlfriend. She ends up telling me she's pretty sure my girlfriend is in the back seat of a car with her and that my girl's been all over her boyfriend's brother and they're all on their way to the movies now. I try calling her and texting to confront her. She calls me back and breaks up with me. The cherry on top is my girlfriend and I work together, and the guy she's cheating with is my manager. She ends up quitting not long after, but I have to work with this guy for another year before I change jobs, lol. Too recent to relive, but here's how it went. Got a random text on Insta asking if I am OP, and new ex responded saying yes. She literally replied saying, "Congrats, your girlfriend is sleeping with my boyfriend," followed by a barrage of screenshots she had gotten from her boyfriend's phone. I was visiting a dying relative in hospital, so could not attend some stupid college party he and his roommate organized. I told him I couldn't go and asked him if he could come over later, after visiting hours in the hospital, because I knew my relative would die soon and I really just needed someone to be there with me. He said he probably wouldn't be able to, as he needed to help his roommate with party preparations, but would come over later if they finish early. Next day, I saw pictures of him with his ex in his lap, kissing, uploaded the previous night by his roommate. The roommate even knew we were dating. He was just too drunk to realize he added me as a friend a week earlier on Facebook and I would see the pictures. My colleague had an elaborate wedding, cathedral ceremony, hundreds of guests, to a guy she'd been with for years. She found out shortly afterwards he'd been cheating because they met this girl, who was his colleague and gym buddy, when they were walking in the park and their 2 French bulldogs, who were noisy and protective, didn't bark at her at all. There was no reason for her to have met the dogs before, as she had never been to their house, to her knowledge. So she snooped on his phone while he was asleep, and apparently he had been cheating for over a year and she was pregnant, and they were opening a business together and he was leaving as soon as he had the whole thing set up. When the dust settled, the only thing she was pissed off about was the expense they and her parents had spent on the wedding. He could have called the whole thing off and saved thousands. She didn't learn though. Her second wedding was nearly as elaborate. She basically moved him into our house. She told me it was to monitor him, because he was depressed and needed help. Apparently tried to off himself by swallowing a bedsheet. I then realized that the whole "depressed and needs help" line was what she would use over any guy she was being suspicious with. Like the one guy that she had history with, who made a move on her while we were together, and kept coming back into her life when he was depressed, or the guy mentioned in the shredded note I found in her nightstand talking about how she wanted to run away with him and get a surprise divorce, or the guy that she had this weird fixation with role-playing Khaleesi and Khal Drogo within online chats. All depressed. All needed her help. Once it clicked, I was done. His sister kept calling me Annie, and my name is Andy, short for Andrea. I corrected her a few times, but I didn't care for her at all, so after I ignored her, since I thought she was trying to be obnoxious. We only saw her once a week or so. Then I find out after almost a year that he was cheating. Only I was the mistress because he had been with Annie for 3 years and they had a child together. I still don't know if his sister was calling me Annie to laugh behind my back or to make him uncomfortable, prob both. It must have been hilarious to her. Anyway, he used to drive my car all the time, and one day I was out running errands and came out of the store to find a woman with her toddler standing by the car. I asked her if I could help her and she said, "No, I'm just trying to find out what store my boyfriend is in, this is his car." So yeah, we both learned a lot that day. We hung out all day together, comparing stories of times he was unreachable. Then we confronted him together. He walked into her apartment and sat down on the couch with a beer, before noticing I was standing there with her in the kitchen. He said nothing, just put the beer down, got up and left, ignoring both of us as we peppered him with questions. This was about 13 years ago, and I haven't spoken to him since. She stayed with him. She was 6 months pregnant the day I met her/found out about her. Till next time, and remember to stay hydrated.